let me maybe set the stage. We did our product hunt launch a month and a half ago, and it's really the first time we've done it. So we talked to a lot of people, how they've done it, what are some of their own learnings, and so this is really an agglomeration of what the insights, what other people have told us, and also our own experience. And it touches on a lot of the major things, and I've managed to kind of stay at the high level, so we can dig in if people want to have a deeper discussion on any one of the items. So why is Product Hunt useful and important? It is probably one of the largest early adopter site right now. SimilarWeb have them at about 5 million or so users on a monthly basis. And that feels about right from what I've seen, other numbers that have been reported as well. But it's in the millions globally. And, I think a lot of the people who are there tend to be of the technical types in the tech industry, willing to try stuff. There have been plenty of people who, have reported, hundreds of thousands of signups on their launch. So most important thing, what drives ranking, right? So the way Product Hunt works is every day there is a ranking. And the number one product of the day essentially is sort of, the quote unquote, the winner. And that's the one that you get a badge on and you get featured in the weekly if you do really well. So you get another bite at the apple at the end of the week. They're sort of the top products of the week that they would feature in their newsletter. So it is disproportionately useful to be number one rather than number two. So what drives ranking? Obviously, this is the secret sauce. From talking to people in our own experience, we have figured out sort of some rough metrics that they care about. Number one is when you launch. So I'll come back to this in a different slide. The way it works is Product Hunt goes on a 24-hour cycle on Pacific time. So every day at 12:01 a.m. Pacific time, there's a new hunt going on. And it lasts until the midnight of the same day, right? So you're on Pacific time cycle. So the closer you are to the start time, the more time you have to get upvotes, to get comments, to get eyeballs and things like that. So when you launch, it is important for you to kind of, launch to take advantage of as much of the 24-hour as possible. So that's a huge decider. The other thing that we've surmised based on our experience is the momentum of upvotes. So we have seen projects ranking number one, even when the number of upvotes is actually substantially less than the number two ranked product. And the reason why we surmise that is so is because the acceleration and the momentum of upvotes and potentially comments are growing much faster than product number two. We have experienced that actually in for a 1 to 2 hour period in our launch when our number two competitor was having a much faster momentum, and we got dropped to number two, and they became number one for a couple of hours until our momentum picked back up. So that's really important. The number of upvotes and number of comments are obviously really important, right? Because that's a huge piece of it. So obvious there. The fifth piece that we suspect also is important is the social standing, the karma points, if you will, of the users who upvote and comment. This is very similar, I suspect, to Reddit, where if you think about Reddit users have karma points, and the karma points are a mixture of people upvoting you and how and the longer your account is, the more karma points you have, the more you post potentially, the more karma points you have. So my guess is that the social standing of people upvote and comment is important. So if you are someone who have a lot of followers and you have a lot of activity in Product Hunt, chances are internally they probably have a hidden score of each user, and those users who upvote and comment actually get bigger weighting than any other user. Is one of my suspicions, which would make sense. And I'll come back to that in a little bit as well in the later slide. The next one is natural discovery. So this is really important, right? So one of the things that Product Hunt has tried really hard to do in the last few years is to make sure that someone who comes to Product Hunt and is browsing and stumble upon your product, clicking through to your site and checking out your site and coming back to Product Hunt, back to the tab and upvoting, that's a very natural discovery, and those get more points than, for example, in the unnatural discovery on the next column, are you sending up to your network, here's my profile link, here's my product link on Product Hunt, please click there and upvote. So what happens there is that people are not coming into Product Hunt main page and finding your project naturally. They're going to your project, which Product Hunt knows that's a promotion. And that gets either penalized or doesn't count as much. So that's really important to know. So a lot of people, they try to game Product Hunt in a very simple manner, which is they'll buy a bunch of bot traffic, and they'll get those bot traffic to go to their page and upvote. And so that's why sometimes you see a project with thousands of upvotes, but why are they not ranked high enough? They're like ranked number 6 or number 7. That's when you know Product Hunt has detected those bot traffic. The next one is editorial discretion. My guess is that there's some amount of editorial discretion internally where Product Hunt management basically can adjust a dial. So if it's something that they think is noteworthy, but somehow people are not upvoting enough to rank high, they may probably adjust the dial. I've seen times where the upvote momentum just wasn't present, but somehow that project was ranked really high. And certainly is a project that was worth people knowing. So the last one is it used to matter who launches you, and it still to a certain extent does, but it doesn't matter as much. It used to matter who launches you because the person that launched you, chances are they have a big network and they have, high social standing. That has been deminimized quite a bit over the years. So now you do see people launching their own projects where they don't have that many followers. They may only have like 200 followers and ranking number 1. So I talked about a natural discovery and bot traffic, so I'll come back to that in a little bit. So when do you launch? Really important on the 24-hour cycle that starts on 12:01 Pacific time. The closer you start to that time, the more time you have for eyeballs, upvotes, and comments. So if you look at all the successful projects, or most of the successful projects, they tend to start close to 12:01 or 1 a.m. And momentum begets more momentum. So this is important also because what I have seen is project that launches early, they get upvotes, obviously more upvotes than projects that launch hours after. So what happens is that you are ranked number 1 or number 2, and when people come to Product Hunt, they clearly will always check out the number 1 and number 2 projects, the top projects first. And naturally, they will look at those and potentially rank and upvote those as well. So that means having a network in Europe or Asia helps a lot, right? So ironically, East Coast US gets penalized quite a bit because it's 3 a.m., 4 a.m. In the morning. So this informs in some ways how you build your community before you launch your Product Hunt project. So I alluded to the unnatural discovery. So this is really what you want your users ideally, how they upvote your project, right? So you want them to come to the Product Hunt landing page, producthunt.com landing page, browse and upvote on a few projects before coming to your project, looking at your Product Hunt project page, clicking through to your website, right? browsing your website for a few minutes and then coming back to the Product Hunt page and upvoting you. Ideally, you want your users to, as closely as possible, to mimic what natural discovery ought to look like. So, and we don't know how, what Product Hunt does to track it, to measure it. There are ways, obviously, to do it, and I imagine they do, and rightly so, right? So they want to reward natural discovery. So it's really important as you think about it, as you build your community, to nudge them to review your project on Product Hunt on launch day. This is the path they take. The path that they shouldn't take, which will get you probably a 0 or very little score on those upvotes, is sending a link to your Product Hunt project page, asking people to upvote, and then them leaving. Right? So we've seen a lot of those that don't do well. So sometimes you can spot bot traffic. So, and I have no idea if this is bot traffic or not, but it is somewhat suspicious, right? So sometimes you do see people coming in, they just joined Product Hunt the same day, and they're sort of typing in non-English. So these are things that, again, I don't know whether it gets penalized, but maybe it does. So something to watch out for as well. So let's back up and talk about prep. So it's really important to thoroughly prep before launch. There are a lot of little pieces. So I'll go through some of the major ones. And ideally, I recommend people to start 60 days or more before your launch date. First thing you ought to do is figure out who's going to hunt your project. So first thing you ought to do is figure out who's going to hunt your project. You can reach out to the top hunters out there. Who hunts your project today is sort of less important than it used to be, but it still helps, because if people have big following, their followers get notification that they're hunting your project. So here's a list, top 500 hunters that you can browse, and you can see, who are the ones who have a lot of followers, and you can reach out and get them to ideally hunt you. You need to build your community ideally a few months before. So what I mean by that is that you need to put your product in the hands of people you think who will use it and who will like it. So Reddit, Slack groups, Facebook groups, tweeting out to people you think who would find your product useful, and so on and so forth, right? That's really important, because you want people to truly have experienced your product, so that when you launch it on Product Hunt, they are likelier, if they like your project, to come like and upvote you. But secondly, they will be able to give some really thoughtful comments, which I think what I found for myself as a Product Hunt user, when I upvote a project, generally I go by the comments. If someone, I'll go to the website and I read the comments, and if comments are compelling enough and thoughtful enough, I'll actually go in and sign up and try the project, right? And if I like it, I'll come back, I'll upvote, give my comments as well. So really important to prep for that. Obviously, you have your own contacts, your own network. Do that as much as possible. And there are do's and don'ts. I'll repeat this again, which is one of the cardinal sin in Product Hunt is asking for upvotes. If you ask for upvotes, naturally people will do this, right? They will go to your page, upvote, and leave. But those count for very little. So just got to you just got to make sure how you tell people to look for your project. Another one I've seen done to great effect is writing a Medium post, highlighting and sort of in longer form why you're building what you're building, why it's interesting, and sort of your own journey. So that ability to humanize sometimes I think are adds to the launch itself, especially if the product is interesting to the community. Next thing, really important, is nailing down your product positioning and your narrative. So Product Hunt is an interesting community in the sense that, it is a short, generally people have short attention span, right? They're scanning the list, they're clicking through, they're reading 2-3 sentences. Really important for you to be able to tell your story within a few sentences and make it really crisp and compelling so that they want to click through and upvote you. Related to that, images and videos are important. Ideally, those are very succinct, as short as possible, really highlight what's really interesting. So one more is, so this is a trick that we learned from a few guys who are experts in this. Basically, you can find products similar to yours that were already featured in Product Hunt, and then make a list of folks who have upvoted or commented on those products. And then reach out to them either through tweeting or follow them on Product Hunt. Reach out to them directly and show your product. Right? Now, this requires a lot of legwork. This is why you need to start way in advance, right? So this requires potentially you contacting everyone, scheduling a time, or sending them the link to your product one by one, and then them trying it, you following up to make sure that they enjoyed it, and then creating another list to say, well, here are the guys who really enjoyed my product, and then tweeting those guys and nudging those guys when you launch. Those could be really useful. So we did some of that to the extent that we can, and it worked well. The other thing you can do is to build a Product Hunt community by using their ship/upcoming. Whoever is moving the pages, you're moving a little too fast. Is to leverage. So there's a feature called Product Hunt Ship upcoming. So you can sign up for a profile upcoming page. It kind of looks like on the right, and it's very simple to set up. It'll take you half an hour to an hour to set up, and then you can start driving traffic to these pages for people to subscribe and sign up. So the great thing about that is that it could drive users from your community building effort to subscribe to your upcoming project, so that when you launch, these subscribers will automatically get notified, right? So it's almost save you a lot of work on the day of the launch. So we did that about 45 days to 60 days before we launched, and it was really useful. So important, I'll repeat this again, don't ask for upvotes in your outreach. I don't know if this goes back to Product Hunt. Someone forwards one of your emails to Product Hunt, whether then they'll manually penalize you, but it's just not worth taking the risk. So, when you reach out to folks, just fashion your email to be very neutral and just say, hey, we just launched on Product Hunt. Come check us out. If you enjoy our product, feel free to review us, right? So make it a little less aggressive. On the launch day itself, there's actually quite a bit that goes into it as well. So number one, you got to clear your schedule. You and your team ideally is on Product Hunt the entire day answering questions. The other thing is you got to do continually is to outreach to your contacts again, to nudge them to say that your launch, please review us. Announce your launch that day on all the channels and all the groups that's relevant. And then social media post. As with any of these launch announcements and posts and tweets, they don't last, right? So you've got to be disciplined and tweet and post every 1 or 2 hours to keep the momentum going, and you got to come up with the story, right? So you can't be tweeting and posting the same thing every 2 hours, like, we launch. So this is where you have to think a little bit outside of the box to kind of figure out what the story is. I've seen people every 2 hours tweet a use case about their product, and then as part of that tweet, also link to the fact that they have launched on Product Hunt today, right? So people don't get bombarded with the same message. I've also seen projects buying Twitter and Facebook ads to point to their Product Hunt launch. I don't know how effective, frankly, that is, because I think because ideally you want to link to the Product Hunt landing page, and you have to tell people to look for your product, your project, and it's a lot of friction for people to do that, find your project, and then look through and then upvote you if they like what you're doing. So the ROI may not be high. Other tips and quirks. The community tends to like simple, digestible, but novel products or services. So being succinct is really important. Being able to stand out is really important. Try not to use stock phrases. Try to, in some ways, be as controversial as possible, right? In a good way, right? So that when people see that one-liner on the list ranking, they have no choice but to click through to check out what you're about, right? I'll give you an example on this. One of the services that was ranked pretty highly was, I'm going to mess this up, but it was on the order a pizza for your remote team, right? So someone stood up a service, a simple landing page. And essentially what that allows you to do, and they've hooked into a bunch of DoorDash APIs and the like, what that allows you to do is, if you're a remote worker or you've got a team in a different office, you can go to that site, order a pizza, have that pizza delivered to, very simple stuff to your remote team. But they've done up the site in really fun, funky colors and copy. So it's a feature. It's not really even a product. But it did really well because the way they've written the copy in the launch was really funny and people like that. So that's a really important thing to do is, introducing humor always helps. And you also see your fair share of sort of like fun, useless projects ranking high just because, again, it's a low, it's a fast moving community that don't, spend a lot of time looking through all the projects in the list. Again, it really helps if you have an existing user base, as I mentioned. So what you also see thematically is products relaunching. So you see a lot of a product would launch 12 or 18 months ago, and then they'll relaunch in their 2.0 version. And when in their relaunch, they'll obviously ping all their user base. And the user base, if it's big enough, would come in and comment and like, and and that's fair game too, right? So if you happen to launch with a popular product that was launching their 2.0 or 3.0 version, you may be unlucky because those projects generally get a lot of love. I think that's it. That's really sort of the high level. I'm happy to kind of go deeper into any of these sub bullet points, and if you want to talk more, have questions. Fire away.
Thank you very much, Waikit. It's amazing.
Wow, thanks, Waikit. It's really, yeah. Can I ask a few questions?
Fire away.
Yeah. So
the latter.
I was wondering about the product hunters, and excuse my ignorance.
Although Product Hunt has staff
are they actually
as well, but
the platform staff, or are they just users who are building up their knowledge and reputation? Who are the product hunters? Wow. Okay. And what is the actual? I mean, what is the difference for you as a startup person launching a product?
That's a great question.
Are you able to say
it has been
what you've gained from being on Product Hunt? Is that measurable? Can you measure the outcome of having been number one there? And are you able to evaluate, like, was this worth all the effort?
So I think for us, it's definitely been worthwhile. It was not non-trivial effort for the couple of months leading up to it, but there is really no other alternative. It almost, I would say that other alternatives that you may be able to think of, other launch channels, actually may require even more work and with more uncertain payoffs. The great thing with Product Hunt is that the other thing I didn't touch on is obviously you can tag all your links with tracking parameters like UTMs and things like that. So whatever analytics product that you use on your site, you can actually easily track how much traffic and users Product Hunt generates.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a coordination effort.
There's one more thing, that the remote pizza delivery. I'm kind of intrigued by that. So did it mean that
I also think
all the remote team members would be getting pizza at the same time, basically? Was that the idea?
And you can actually send notifications and things like that. So it was not necessarily a simple product, but it was very well done. So people really liked it.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. So thanks for all this information. I think it was useful. We are also
it is a great question. I've always been intrigued with beta lists.
Another question I had is
so let's go there now.
There is something called
beta list, and I have never done beta list.
Product Hunt. So
to be honest, I don't know anyone who have done beta list and have had a great experience. Now they may have, but I just don't know those people. I think if I look at beta list, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of activity. So if I look at trending startups today, here, and I click on one of these, it looks like they're only 11, maybe not even 11. They're only showing 3 comments. Short answer is I don't know what the ROI is. Can't speak to it.
Okay, great. Because we had this also in mind.
Have you heard of anyone?
We thought we'll launch here when we are just beta. We don't have a complete product yet. But then we were confused. Then what is Product Hunt for? Can we not launch a beta product on Product Hunt? Should it be a complete product? So we had all these questions. A long time ago, but not recently.
Product Hunt?
Whoever wants anything like this, it's usually on Product Hunt because they are the clear winners here. And I believe they also have products where they connect you with investors.
Yeah, that I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised because now that they're part of Angel List,
they have a
so
paid
they may
plan
be connecting with the Angel List
for
users
some money
as well
and
to
you get
connect
hold
projects
of
with
other kind
investors.
of products.
I have not tried that.
I'm not sure.
I haven't tried that. And I would imagine if there is, it's actually really useful because Angel List is probably the biggest angel investor or investor database in the world today. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. So another last question I have for you is, so other than the feedback,
no, we've
do you see all these
a
users who
bunch.
you got from Product Hunt?
I don't have the numbers off the
they're
top of
coming
my head,
back and
but there
using your
are definitely
product,
also users
or
that
they just gave some feedback to you
come
which was valuable.
check us out.
Were you able to convert them into
They're
customers or
curious
anything
why.
like that?
I think you see this quite a bit with number one products. They're just like, look, this doesn't apply to me, but I'll check it out because it's the number one product. I'm curious. So those users sometimes don't stick around, obviously. You're welcome. I believe you do. Yes, you do. So
right.
Every time you're number one,
cool.
you get.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Waikit, if you are number one, say on the 24th of October, and if you are number one also the following days or at some other date, do you get a badge for each of those?
No. So the unit. So yes and no actually. So there are two layers.
So would the aim be to stay up top for a long time, and is that at all possible?
Most upvoted for the day. They also have, they do a look back every year and basically do here are the top 10 most upvoted projects, right? So they look through all the 365 days, right? So if you are the top of the top, the top 5 of the top 10 projects of the year, you get featured more also in some sections of the site. They used to have it. I can't find it now, but they also do that in their email newsletter, right? And for that matter, as I mentioned, if you are the number one, the most highly voted project of the week, I'm not sure if they still have this. They used to have a weekly newsletter that basically at the end of the week they tally it up and say this is the most highly voted product of the week. So it pays dividends. It pays dividends to not just win the day, but also to win the week and win the year. So. No, not anytime soon. We have some major features that we'll be launching at some point in the future that we may do another push, a couple of pushes. And certainly when we are at 2.0, we'll
so are you planning to do another push?
Some of the other uncommon things that people have done, which is useful, is if you launch a feature that's big enough, that's newsworthy enough, you can push. Now, what is the delineation between who makes the editorial decision, right? Whether you can relaunch, you can launch a new feature or not, and whether it's worthy of being listed. Because there have been projects that I know friends of mine who have launched projects, and they actually got blocked, for lack of a better word. They thought they launched it, but they actually didn't launch it. It didn't get featured on the front page. And here's the reason why. It turns out the qualification factor, the bright line, is whether your landing page is the same as the prior landing page of something you have launched. So what happens is a lot of people, when they launch a new feature, they point the landing page to the blog post, or they stand up a new landing page just talking about that feature. And here's the fun, more interesting things. There are companies that may not have a lot of feature launches, a fast cadence of feature launches. So what do? They actually then go do they would do surveys. They would do surveys. They would do ebooks related to what they're doing, and then they launch here, right, to keep promoting the company and their service, even though they have no new features. exactly right. I think when you boil down to it,
so it has to have
the
this
question,
this taste of the new to it, right?
Is this useful to the community?
So to be successful
for
a subsequent push,
I'll give you an
have
example.
To have
this is actually great.
Look of you're just offering new information, not just rehashing old stuff, right?
He launched some really, really well done. Some really well done surveys and the like. So here, yep, I believe so. So, like for example, remote work statistics, right? This is the number 2 product of the day. They spent a lot of time. It looks like a lot of time compiling these stats. Really interesting stuff, right? And a lot of people liked it.
Yeah, I believe he also hunted Notion.
By the way, Rachel,
related question. So,
wait, I'm sorry.
Did you find
I missed the first part
anything
of your question?
Product hunt users have in common as an audience? Is there a particular segment or perhaps several segments, that's active on the website? What sort of people use Product Hunt? Did you find them different from generally market to
the audience
on different platforms, or like is there anything what the audience reacts to apart from?
It's mostly technical audience. It's mostly folks who work in technology, right? Startups, bigger companies, but it's a very
and what
silicon
sort
heavy
of audience is on the Product Hunt who uses it?
Demographic and psychographic, right? Now it doesn't. I mean, they have a big user base beyond Silicon Valley too. But they, think about the a tech/startup person in Berlin, for example, right? Or in Singapore or in Hong Kong. Well, maybe less so Asia. I don't see as much Asia, but in Europe certainly. Sometimes in Latin America. But by and large, they're mostly in the tech industry. Yeah, so Rachel, here's another one. Buy Me a Coffee 2.0. They actually, second version of the product.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it's cool, right? It's fun, It's sort of break the monotony of the day, and it's So this is, I think, the number 2 and number 3 product of the day.
Yes. These are like gestures of love and kindness, right? So,
well, let's see. It apparently is.
So I'm supposing there's ways to see whether this is actually still existing, or is it just like a like a pop-up thing that someone is running to test how the platform works?
Well, let's see. So Basecamp. So this is interesting, right? This is one of the things I was talking about. Basecamp has huge following. They're launching I guess here they launched a new feature.
We should do some for our alumni community.
Like 1,000 upvotes and number 1 product of the month. And no surprise. I mean, these are some of the expected performance of brand name products. And the other thing is social proof matters, right? So this is actually the other truth, I think. Momentum begets more momentum, but I also think that social proof begets more social proof, right? So I think, Basecamp is an example of that. Notion is an example of that. And obviously you can't have great social proof without having, something compelling, a compelling product. But it is a, Product Hunt is you get breakouts, you get your once in a while, the very exciting new breakouts. But then you also get the Notions and the Basecamp and the Airtables of the world where they launch a feature and you happen to be launching the same day. It becomes a dogfight. Unfortunately I don't think so, or I don't know of any way. And which, by the way, I have heard.
Yeah. So, is there any way you can
experiment. I actually
behind the scenes coordinate with other people who you know are going to launch, so that you don't you each give yourself the space to be.
So her calculation is this, which is actually really smart. And she said, look, people tend to launch on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And they also, by the way, this is one thing I didn't mention. The sophisticated ones look at all the tech calendars. They try not to launch on days with major conferences, whether the CES, Amazon, AWS, reInvent conferences that tend to suck up a lot of people's attention and takes a lot of the tech guys out of circulation, so they don't spend time on Product Hunt. So people definitely do that. So her strategy was even one step ahead. It's just like, look, I know what my competitors are doing. So using game theory, and all my competitors avoid Saturday launches like the plague. And her thesis was, I think they're undervaluing the fact that Saturday is still a day. And if I get the number one product of the day on Saturday, I still win. Right? And I thought it was interesting. So. Yeah. That's a great idea.
That's a good move. Kind of just seeing where there's space.
But I can imagine there will be plenty of.
So now I'm wondering whether someone could create a product to launch on Product Hunt that is going to help people launch on Product Hunt, sort of like people who have become agents for Airbnb.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't see how they'll know, if a project that's launching is using a particular service, unless.
But is it something that the Product
raise
Hunt
their hand and say, this particular launch they're responsible for, and then obviously they would have to say it during the day or in advance of that, right? I think it's really hard to track, but I also think that there's nothing wrong using a service. I mean, just like I'm telling you guys my experience and sort of the insights that I've learned along the journey. And my guess is a lot of the value of service like this is really taking over the entire end-to-end process and working in conjunction with the startup and the company to do the launch, right? Again, as you see, there's a lot of quirkiness to the process. There's a lot of, I actually think it's an interesting idea.
Yes, because it came to mind because you have all these insights from having tried. So you are already aware of where there could be spaces. And I'm just thinking, if you have two really potentially interesting products that are almost
what's
competing
really
against each other,
of
course, if they launch the same day,
quietly,
the sort of natural traffic that goes to them would kind of be split between the two. Possibly, depending on how good
there's a cabal
they've organized their launch.
Silicon Valley,
it would make more sense for them to take turns in being
companies
number one
that have banded together and create essentially what is a cartel, right? And they have to be very quiet about it, and they have to vet the membership in the cartel really carefully. But essentially, it's a cartel where you essentially plan your launches so that you're not stepping on each other's toes. Could be. I mean, this may already exists already for all you know. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I think if you have to pay, you shouldn't use that hunter. No, I've known Hiten for a
Yeah,
few years. I've been a big fan of what he's built.
cartel is the
Been a big
word.
fan of a lot of his insights. And no, I just pinged him months ago and just say, hey, would you be open and willing to launch us? And he graciously
Pardon my
agreed.
question here, Vakit. So
No, I think a
do
lot of
you
this is
have
just
to pay
you
to
asking
Hiten
someone
Shah
if
to
they
launch your product?
would be willing to do it for you. Now, it's a lot easier to launch it now than before. So before, a few years ago, it was a pain in the ass to ask. The reason is because imagine, right? Someone needs to stay up until 12:01 Pacific time to launch your stuff, and it's just a pain in the butt. But now it actually gets easier because now Hiten Shah can actually schedule my launch beforehand. So he and I will work on the launch pages and all that stuff. We'll spend 15 minutes doing it, and boom, we schedule it for like 12:05, and we're out. He doesn't need to be up until like 12:05. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So the timing actually benefits Europe and Asia really well, right? So just because of
Mhm.
you think who's going to be in front of the computer to do the early upvotes at
Get someone from Europe,
12:05 a.m.
right?
Pacific time, right? It's parts of Asia,
Wonderful.
That's
it's
great.
Asia and parts of Europe.
Cool. Good to hear. Yeah.
Amit, are you launching a product or an app or a website?
We are actually, my product is out already. But while looking at this product hunt, right, I do see a lot of value that I can have by having a product hunter launch my product and bring up the product in this community. I was not aware of this, to be frank with you, earlier. I didn't know all these cool gadget places for the startups. So my product, we started locally. We have onboarded some customers. We are growing in the North Carolina market. uh, but as I'm trying to reach out now to grow further and maybe think about the
And
investors as well,
Waikit, in terms
I think
of
this would be
upvotes and
this will be a
support
great place to
and
launch my
just
product.
engagement around your product,
Yeah, I think the bootcamp
where
community
did
and
you get
you
the
guys
best
definitely
response
were
from where
helpful. But
you
I think
invited people to support
the tip of
the
the spear, the
launch,
best
and
response,
how would
and
you say
I
that the
measure this in
bootcamp
maybe
alumni
a
community reacted?
quirky
Were
way.
they helpful, or did you
So
find
I
more
think
support from other types
the best type of
of
response are thoughtful comments about
circles
why
and communities?
someone liked the product, right? So if I go by that measure, generally the theme is just people who have used our product, more, a few times at least, right? Who have spent enough time on it and to be able to kind of speak to the big differentiators. So and those come in all shapes and sizes and different channels, but as long as they've used us a number of times and find it useful, we find that those people tend to be the best commenters, upvoters, and folks to drive to on launch day. So it's important, the crux, right? The kernel. It is important to get a list of those folks, to curate a list of those folks leading up, right? And making sure that they're aware, making sure that, ping them a number of times leading up to the launch and just saying, hey, you don't have to upvote us, right? But just nudge again that we'll be launching tomorrow, today, the day after tomorrow.
And in terms of use of Remote HQ, how much are you and your
so
team
we
finding
did a
that
bunch
you
of
need
product
to
changes
actually
leading
take
up to it
people by the
for
hand
exactly this reason.
through the platform? I mean,
we looked a
how is
lot
it working?
at
Is it working by
some of
itself,
the
or
friction
are people
and the
kind of getting
like,
stuck?
and
And
where
are
people were
you
confused.
spending
And we actually
time to
optimized
kind
the
of
product
cultivate
quite a bit before
the,
the
like help
launch, just
people
to
along
kind
the
of make sure
learning
that
curve?
people are not confused by it. So we didn't have, there are kind of onesie twosie questions coming to us, but we didn't really have a lot of folks who were, stopped and like, oh, wait a minute, like, what do I do now? One of the things related though we did do in our launch was we gave everyone 15 free sessions, all you can eat, right? So the idea was, do not drive them to a service where they have limited functionality, right? So we tweaked our product also to enable them to come, use it for 15 sessions. If they use the 15 sessions within a week, that's fine. If they use it within a year, that's fine. And it's all free. And then once they finish the 15 sessions, what we also tell them is that here's a link that you can book a 20-minute onboarding session with us. If you do that, we will give you more free credits. Right. So our objective was not so much conversion, as in like revenue, but our objective was, a lot of it was making sure that, to your point, like people who may have questions may not ask it during the product hunt launch, even though they tried it, but they may be more open to asking it if they have a one-on-one. So we gave them a link to a Calendly calendar where they can book sessions, like 20-minute sessions. Yeah, I'll show you. So this is our page. This is what it looked like. So
Thanks.
we had a video that just sort of highlights, very quickly what people can do, and then not so much use cases, but sort of functionalities. And then, we kind of go through the key concept. So for example, our shared browser is, a very differentiated app and feature. So we wanted to kind of showcase that front and center. And then, this, by the way, this innocent looking set of lines took a lot of time to kind of get to this point, just the copy editing and making sure that it didn't confuse people. So that took a lot of back and forth. And then, so this is where we say, we gave 3 months free. Actually, no, we didn't even tell them to, I was mistaken, tell them to book a session. We actually gave them a coupon code to actually get three more months free if they sign up by a certain date, if they redeemed it by a certain date. Yeah, no, I'm happy to. If folks have questions and the like, I'm happy to.
Thank
Folks
you
who didn't
very
attend the
much,
session, obviously, if they have
This
questions
is
and the like, happy to answer them.
super
Have them
interesting.
drop
And
me
I'm
an
just
email.
thinking we our community should play around with this a lot more. In the Thank you. And I'm wondering, like Pavel, we should maybe take some of the community projects into here and just kind of mess around with this room, so that because now I had forgotten, just when I saw the demo video,
we
I
need
just
to do a better
remembered,
job
like, if I want to see
when they come to
people
here,
from the
the
gallery
fact
who
that
are
they
like
can
in
do
this
that,
little strip at the top right, all you need to do is just drag the image and put it where you want it to be, and it's like a tile and it becomes big. And it's so simple. It's so simple. It's so simple that you don't think of you don't think of it.
Yeah. No, we need to do a better job to communicate with the company here. The fact that they can do that. Yeah. Yeah, we call it a better version of screen share. I think, we build this for remote and distributed teams, and we always think, it's insane given how much have changed in the internet world that most remote teams rely on, obviously you need audio video, but they rely on screen share.
It's like being in a room together.
Screen share was invented back in the mid-90s.
demo, but
And
it's a pretty cool feature, I think.
So our core thesis
so that everyone is engaged in that process. It's not
app,
like people are just sitting
one of the most important apps on our platform is the fact that, look, you should allow people without downloading any software to be able to co-create, co-edit, and control together.
Oh, just so I understand correctly, does this mean that the browser is in the browser's in the platform?
This browser.
So I thought it was on
this is magic.
Waikit's
This is
computer.
our magic sauce. This browser.
Yeah, see, like Andrew,
machine.
I'm clicking now, and I'm changing the
but
tabs.
you have to share the.
This browser lives in the cloud.
It is. Sorry. It's not on mine. I am actually intervening on his.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Yes, that's what I was saying. I know that's why I accidentally clicked on the other time before, but so you're saying
so we actually have a sub
you can click on it, Andrew.
coming out hopefully soon.
This is so
which
awesome.
is stripping away a lot of this stuff and just focusing on the browser. So if you think about this, what this is a browser that anyone can click
difficult to wrap your brain around
in the cloud. And when you spin up the browser in the cloud, you can actually choose which location the browser lives. So right now we have 4 locations. We have Singapore, Berlin, Northern California, and Virginia. So obviously when you spin up the browser, you want it to be as close to you as possible so it's super responsive. But here's the other thing. This browser is shareable, obviously, right? That's one of the big differentiators. But the other piece is, imagine you are just using a browser alone. And sometimes, people use VPN, right? To mask their IP to be secure and be anonymous. But the problem is that you could still end up going to websites that have malware and viruses because you're using your local browser. By using a browser in the cloud, you're 100% protected against all viruses because this browser is disposable. Every time we end the session, the entire browser gets destroyed. And every time you start a new browser session, it's a brand new browser. So I'm sorry? It essentially is that. Yeah. Because if I minimize this is not a desktop. It's just it's just our cloud.
Wow, mind-boggling.
This will be like Chromebook on the cloud. It'll be like Chromebook on the cloud.
Pavel, do you have any words in closing? Because we're at the top of the hour.
It's awesome. Hey, last question for everyone who's coming for the reunion next year.
Presenting this, so it's been really, really interesting to hear your experience with Product Hunt and with launching.
Well, I guess I'll see you. I'll see you guys.
I'd like to thank you all guys for attending today. It's really amazing to see so many familiar faces here today.
I will.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help.
I'm going to book my tickets very soon.
Happy holidays.
Cool.
Well, make
really
sure
look forward.
you
and thank you so much, Waikit, for taking the time.
Before you close
and we
out
will make sure that this recording gets shared so that others can benefit from this, your wisdom and your insights. And thank you so much. Happy holidays, everyone.
Holidays.
Bye for now.
Bye.